All right, good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to show you guys how to get started with your paper mache monsters. We talked about having your sketch ready, so you want to make sure that you have your sketch laid out of what you're going to do. Make sure that you look at the shapes of each different piece that you need to make. And you're going to start with the biggest piece first, so that is probably going to be the body of your monster. That will be, dependent on what you're doing, but always start with the biggest shape first, because once you have that biggest shape, then you can build the smaller shapes, in relation to that bigger shape. So started with the body, which I already have made. So remember, we're building the shape. I also have one of the heads of my monsters. I'm going to show you how to get started with just the smaller head of my monster, because I've got my bigger head here. Actually, I think I'm going to make that the smaller head. I'm going to make a bigger head. So in order to get started, you always start with the newspaper. You have the Daily Times, probably, which is the smaller paper, and then you have your Philadelphia Inquirer, which is the bigger paper. It's a double sheet, so when you open it up, it's double the size. So I would start with the smaller paper, and you start off just by balling it up and crunching it up too. And then you just keep on adding paper. You want to make sure that you're cognizant of the size that you're doing, and the shape that you're making. If you keep adding all of your newspaper to one side of the ball, then it's going to end up being lopsided. So make sure that you're paying attention to how you're adding the paper on here. And you don't need to add masking tape until you get to a point where, you want it to start staying together a little better. So that as you're adding these layers, I would just keep on adding layers. And like I said, keep squeezing it to get the size. So if this is the top of the head that I'm making, I obviously want it to be a perfect circle. So I'm squeezing it in that general direction just to get that. Once you start rocking and rolling, what you can do, and what I do, is I take this masking tape and I cut a giant piece, stick it on the table, and then rip smaller pieces, and then I just stick them onto the table themselves, just so that I have pieces to grab when I need it. Because if you're balling up newspaper, once you let it go, there's a very good chance that it will undo itself. So if I have these already started, and they're only maybe 3 inches long, not super long. If I have these ready to grab, then it makes it easier for me. So you're going to take it, and you're going to build it, and keep on comparing it to the size that you already, that you have made. Keep on going bigger. And I would try to do just one sheet at a time. I wouldn't do two, just because once you start balling it up, if you're not actually forming it with your hands, then it is easy for it to take off in a wrong, lopsided direction that you don't want. All right, so now I haven't put any tape on yet. It's, at this point I'm going to want to add some tape, and you're just using it to tape down any of the newspaper that's sticking up. What you don't want to do is cover the whole thing in masking tape, because A, it wastes the tape, which we don't want to waste it. We want to use as little as possible. But B, the glue and the water doesn't want to stick to this slick surface of the masking tape, so it actually ends up hurting you in the long run. So you're only going to use it where you've got pieces of newspaper that are sticking up. So here's my ball. You can see it's pretty round from all different directions. Now, because I want my head to be attached to the side, the top, I don't want it to be round on the bottom. So if this is going to be my bottom, I want it to be pretty flat, so it has a good surface area to connect to the body with. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So, because I want it bigger than the other head that I made. So keep on adding, balling up and adding and rolling your newspaper. Compare the two. This is a pretty good size. I'm pretty happy with this. So I think this is where I'm going to stop as far as my head goes. So I want to take the tape and I want to tape it shut, just so it's easier for me to work with. It's easier for me. I can let it sit without worrying about it unraveling. You can also use your tape to hold down spots that are bigger than others or stick out more. Use it to kind of help you make that shape right there. And you can press your paper. Like, even though it's just newspaper, you can actually, like, put pressure on it, kind of roll it, depending on the shape that you're going for, to crinkle that newspaper in there. And then if you notice you've got, like, a spot where it's flat, you can even make, like, a smaller ball and just stick it on the side and then tape that on there. So this is pretty good. I'm happy with this shape. Looks good on my monster. So I was showing you guys earlier, this is one of the feet that I made. So I'm going to show you how to make a foot, or like smaller portions, and how to attach them together into a bigger part. I wanted my toes to be separate on my foot. And I wanted smaller toes, so I ripped my newspaper down. So as far as my toes go, I form it, and then I kind of, I want pointy toes. I want pointy on one side and like fatter on the other. So you can, make sure that you're pressing your newspaper into the shape that you want it to be, which will help you out later on. And you don't need to have a ton, like I said, a ton of tape or a ton of newspaper here. So there's one toe. I need some more tape first. Two toes, or tape, two toes. This tape will stick to everything, so just keep that in mind with where you're sticking it. And I would keep my pointy toe, so I'm going to use the tape to compare it to the other one. Just make sure that it's a good size. The top doesn't really matter because I am going to tape them together. So I'm not too worried about that. And then I need 3 toes. Okay, now newspaper away for now. I've got my toes right here. I want to attach them together just like I did with this foot right here. So I'm going to, I want them to be pretty well attached, so I'm going to squeeze them together to kind of press this paper down in here. Same thing here to make a good connection spot like that. I'm going to hold them and I'm going to tape them together. Get my tape. So like the amount of masking tape you should use is relatively small. Like I still have this whole entire roll here. Pretty much. You do not want to use like all of your masking tape by any means. If you did something terribly wrong. Tape it around the front and the back so it stays together. And then on this one, I made a little part on the back because I want to attach it to the bottom of my monster like this. So if I attach it to the front, it would be kind of sticking out, but at least I can attach the bottom. So I got to make a little bottom of this foot here too. And really, I just ball it up, and then I shaped it into that little rectangle shape. And this is going to be the same thing as far as, like, attaching it and just, like, squeezing it together. All right, so now I have 2 feet. I have my body. I've got 2 heads because I have a 2-headed monster. And then I also cut out wings. So if you want to use cardboard and have things that are kind of, if I can pick them up, have things that are kind of like that stay pretty like rigid, you can use cardboard for that. I have cardboard here, or you can use cardboard that you get with like shipping and anything that you get shipped to your house, any boxes like that. That cardboard will work as well. This is chipboard, so it's thin on the inside. It's not as thick. One thing you want to think about though, do you want this to be fatter, more 3-dimensional, or do you just want it to be flat? If you want it more 3-dimensional, just add, like, you can ball up pieces in newspaper and add it to there. If you want it flat, that's fine too. So I'm going to show you how to put the monster together. This is where you want to use a good amount of tape. You don't want anything falling off, because if it's falling off before you paper mache it, then it's really going to fall off afterwards because the paper is going to get wet, the tape's going to get wet, and then the whole thing is going to fall apart. So you don't want it to fall apart. So have lots of tape ready to go. ready to go here. All right, so now I'm gonna start building my monster. This is the bottom. This is my foot. Decide which foot I want on which side, how far I want them apart. And then what I'm gonna do is carefully pick this up and flip it over, and then tape. You do want to use excess tape when you are taping things on, because if you don't, it'll easily come up. Now you don't need to have tape like everywhere all over it, but you do want to have a good amount because, like I said, if you don't, this will start to come up. So I tape the back. I'm also going to try to tape right in here if I can. And it's better to have a long piece that goes front to back than it is to try and put it in the seam because it wants to come up. So I'm going to actually make this a little bit smaller. Like that. Make sure it stays. Like, it should not be moving or flopping around. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this foot. Figure out where exactly I want it on here. And now you can see my monster stands up a little bit, so I'm going to have to add a bottom probably. Just to add some paper back here so it does sit flat. Alright, so add tape. You don't want anything falling apart. Like I said, now if you look at this, you can see this, how this sticks out a little further than this does. So I'm going to add a little bit of newspaper right here to even it out. So it's not lopsided. You could always add newspaper just like this. If things are falling off your monster, something is not right. So you should be able to pick this up. Like, things should not fall off. I didn't put my one piece of tape on the front of my foot. Do that. Here. Alright, so when I pick up my monster, nothing should be flapping around. Pretty secure. Now I'm going to add my heads. Same thing. Lots of tape. Ready to go. Get your tape ready. It'll just make your life easier. Figure out where you want this to go. There we go. This is where I want it to be. Any last minute changes that you want to make to the shape of it, do that now. Then you're just going to start taping it down. Hold it while you're taping it. So you can see I am just taping the body and the head together. Again, it's better to have, okay. Yeah, it's fine. Better to have tape that goes the front and back instead of along that seam. But as you can see, I'm not, it's not falling off. But it is lopsided again, so I need to add some more paper to this bottom. Because you don't want anything, you don't want it falling over. Balance is a big deal, and once you start building it, you'll see how balanced it is. Oh no. Okay. So then you're going to, then I'll add my other little head to this side. My two-headed monster. Now this one I'm going to connect between the heads from one to the next. So this should help prevent, should, it from falling off. Add more tape. So you got everything nicely connected here. So if it wants to lean this way, I want to put more tape preventing it from leaning that way. Right. So adjust this tape so it's not like, this is my little monster, my feet, my body, my heads. You can see that it's not totally like smoothed out. That's what the paper mache is for. Last thing I have are my wings that I want to add on here. So you can do one of two things. You can stick them to the project, just tape them to the sides like you did before. Or what you can do is cut a little slit inside the newspaper with a pair of scissors, which I will show you how to do that. So all you do is where you want your wing or whatever cardboard you're sticking in there, use a pair of scissors and just make a little cut inside of it. Then you're gonna stick it in there and then do the same thing you did with the everything else. Tape it long ways so that it sticks like that. And you could add a little more tape if you want it to be a little more secure. I'll probably do that afterwards. So if you don't cut anything in there, all you're gonna do is the same thing. I need one more piece of tape. Same thing, just minus the cut. You're just gonna hold it on there. And you might wanna just put one piece of tape on there first. Hold it on there, make sure it lines up right. Tape that, and then do the other side, like that. So now I have my thing built, and you just keep on doing it until you add all of your pieces together. You want to make sure nothing is moving, nothing is, and I will continue to just add tape here. If I need to cut this tape, I will, but you want to keep on adding support so it doesn't fall off, so that nothing falls off. That's your goal. You don't want anything falling off. Now, because it's only going to get worse once you actually try to paper mache it. So any details that you want on here, anything that needs to be added, this is how you build it and how you add it on there. From here, you're going to watch the next video, which details how to make the paste for paper mache, and then how to actually paper mache. There's a little bit of a technique to it. So make sure after you've everything built, you're going to watch the next video for how to actually make your project.